Welcome to This Organized Life. If you're a mom, wife, or coffee lover seeking advice on how to reduce clutter and reclaim time, look no further than your host, Lori Palau, founder of Simply Be Organized and author of Hot Mess, a practical guide to getting organized. For a lot of people, clutter is their dirty little secret, but it doesn't have to be. Each week, we will share practical tips, chat with experts, and provide strategies on how to keep you organized. I hope that by sharing our stories, you feel a little less alone and more empowered to tackle the areas that are holding you back. So let's get started!
Hey guys, Lori here, hopping in for a quick minute. I wanted to tell you about an upcoming webinar that I'm going to be hosting on July 20th at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. And it's specifically geared to helping professional organizers grow and scale their business. Whether that means that you are looking to grow your client base or you're looking to diversify your service offerings, we're going to be covering 5 specific ways that you can grow your business. So if you are currently a professional organizer, or maybe you're somebody who's thought about starting a professional organizing business, either as a side hustle or as a full-time income revenue stream, this is something that you're going to want to tune into. So again, the live event is July 20th, which is a Wednesday, and it's going to be at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. If you can't make the live event, no worries. We're going to be recording it, so you will get access to a replay. But during this event, you can ask me questions. It's going to be super fun and interactive. So again, if you're somebody who's currently in the space or you're thinking about maybe trying to figure out, is this something that I can actually make money doing? Then I encourage you, register, sign up, come. It will be a lot of fun. To register, go to simplybeorganized.com/July webinar. And we'll also have the link in the show notes. All right, I'll see you then. This Organized Life podcast. I am your host, Lori Palau, and we are plowing through our series on clutter and the Enneagram. And I am really, really excited to talk to today's guest because she's an Enneagram 7. And I love Enneagram 7s. They're fun. They are the people, or at least that's what I think of. I think of their the spontaneous people. Again, I'm stereotyping, and they're the hey, let's be up for an adventure. And as somebody who is sort of a planner, I wish that I could adapt some of the characteristics of the Enneagram 7, even though I do share a wing with them. And when I was searching for a guest for today's episode, I was really excited when I came across Jackie. Many of you know her, and she's going to come and kind of share her story, but she is an Enneagram coach, and she runs the website and the Instagram handle Enneagram with JB. Very popular, super knowledgeable about the Enneagram. So I thought she'd be a great person to talk to. She's also a mom of 4 people. She lives outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and which is one of my favorite places. So again, we're going to definitely talk a little bit about that. And she graciously, as you might hear before, right before we hopped on the air, she apologized, even though she did not need to, for our sound quality being maybe not as crisp as normal because she's on vacation and she took time from her vacation to chat with us. So I'm very, very appreciative. So give her some love also on the gram when you are done listening to this. But anyway, without further ado, I would like to welcome my guest for today's show, Jackie Brewster. Welcome, Jackie.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is exciting.
Yes, I love talking all things Enneagram. I love talking about clutter. I get super jazzed up about both of those topics and hearing from other experts because I love learning from people who have been in this space way longer than I have, that have a deeper knowledge. But before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of things, can you just share with our listeners a little bit about who you are and kind of your backstory?
Sure. I am Jackie Brewster. Like you said, the Enneagram with JB is my handle and my website and all those things. I had a girlfriend that used to call me JB when I lived in North Carolina. And so when I was like, we're going to use that for this. It just fits, which is always fun when I go to places and then they call me JB and I'm like, oh, No, my name's Jackie. Wait a minute. What happened? Something got lost in translation. But anyways, I live right outside of Nashville. I've got 4 great, beautiful children. And they're kind of getting older, which makes
I was going to say, give us the range, the age range. We love hearing age ranges.
Yeah. So 18, no, I'm sorry. Wait, 20, 18, and twins that are 13, almost 14. And I'm on vacation with my husband. We've gone to the same beach, condo, everything for the past 10 years. And this year feels like different. They all feel so much older. They're all independent and all that kind of stuff. So, I have this crew. My husband is a consultant and he does music business stuff. And so we have a very full, fun, adventurous life, which I'm a 7, he's a 3.
I was going to ask what the relational Enneagram connection was there.
7 and 3. And so it is kind of like, let's go, like all the things, let's go. And it's funny being older. I think sometimes I look at him and I'm like, I think you're the 7. And I don't think I'm the 3 because I don't really care about a lot of the things he cares about. But sometimes I feel like I lean into my 1 in a very healthy way, which is my stress number. And then also more into my 5 as I'm getting older, and health and growth and understanding myself better, where I'm like, I love adventure and fun, but I love to just sit and read a book, or I love to gather knowledge. Oh my gosh. Especially in this area of study with Enneagram and attachment theory and all kinds of different elements that I get to add into what I do. But I'm a life coach. So I do that full time, and I write books and I do speaking engagements and all kinds of fun stuff. So
tell us, and it's funny because I also, for our listeners who have been with me, they know I'm married to a 3 as well. And so we're all, as a 3, 7, and 8, we're all in that aggressive stance. We're all the forward-thinking people. So if you're not super, super well-versed in the Enneagram, we might be kind of speaking a foreign language. Mm-hmm. But I think the overall theme here is all of the Enneagram types have connection points to one another, which is why I am so passionate about sharing information about all the types and allowing people to learn about all the types, because again, we live in relational spaces, whether that's marriages, parent-child, coworkers, roommates, whatever. And so having this knowledge, even if it's not super deep about all the types, but just having some overarching knowledge is so helpful. Mm-hmm. And so I love that. And I love, especially kind of as we get into the whole clutter relation, like the whole clutter organization and how that impacts how we kind of see the world. Mm-hmm. is so critical. So tell us your Enneagram story. How did you, because you're a life coach, so you've been in that space. Mm-hmm. Where did the Enneagram start to play into that?
Okay. 10, it's longer than that now. I want to say 10 years because it was that for so long. And I'm like, it's actually like 12 years ago, probably. My girlfriend had a book delivered to my house. And at that time, my twins were babies. They're just 2, 3 years old. And they were teeny tiny babies. So they could Houdinis, they could get out of anything. And so, we're taking a walk and her sweet kid is like sitting in her stroller, eating her snack, reading a book probably. And mine are like escaping like wild animals from the zoo. And so it was after a walk like that she sent me this book, and it was The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Rizzo and Ross Hudson, my favorite Enneagram book ever. And I, was a little like, that symbol's weird. I don't know about this. This feels like a weird, I'm just saying, I was like, I don't know. So then I started to look at it, started to read about it, and I tested as an 8. And I was like, okay, I can get down with that. Like I've got 4 kids under, maybe it was 8 at that time. My husband traveled and I had to be in charge. And so, but then the more I studied the Enneagram and looked at those unconscious childhood messagings, the heart longing messages, and started to understand it's about motivation, not behavior. Let's say that again. It's about motivation, not behavior. That is when I was like, I am a 7 because my unconscious childhood messagings line up right there. Like that is all of, how I think and feel and why I do what I do. And so that started the journey of just digging in and learning more about it. And then when I went through Beth McCord, your Enneagram coach.com, and that's who I got certified through. started the journey of life coaching through that, and got my first book offer within 6 months of that, and then another book offer right after that. And my third book is in production right now. So,
oh my gosh, well, we're going to have you. Well, plug the books a little bit.
So the first book is a devotional. It's a 52-week Enneagram devotional called Hearing God Speak, and it is beautiful. Full color. It is absolutely beautiful. The second project is Enneagram Essentials, which is a card deck. And so it's, it goes through all the 9 types of Enneagram, all different aspects of it in card form. So it's I just say it's like, if you follow me on Instagram, it's going to be a little like that. It's going to feel like nuggets of information for you to process slowly, for you to talk about it with other people. It's conversational, and then a marriage book that comes out next year. So all of that just happened. And I feel like I found my lane in my 40s. That's how I feel like it happened.
Well, I love that for so many reasons. First of all, we've got so many women listeners. We have men listeners too, but our core audience are women. A lot of them are in kind of, even though I'm older than you.
She looks like she's 34.
Stop it. But I think there are a lot of women that are trying to figure out kind of either a next chapter where their kids are getting older, whether they're school age or kind of moving into that empty nest phase, or they're just trying to maybe figure out how can I have a better work-life integration? What can I do? And I talk to many people and say, you're not washed up. There's plenty chapter 2 stories or chapter 3 stories for people. So I just love it from an inspirational standpoint, whether it's you want to become a professional organizer, whether you want to become an Enneagram coach, whether you want to whatever. That it's out there for you. So I just think from that perspective, it's great. And I also want to highlight another thing, because I'm sure you get this all the time, which is people want to just take a quick test and they want to know what it is.
Yes.
You want to speak just because you're, this is what you do for a living. And sometimes I feel like I'm not an authority where people ask me and then they're like, we don't like your answer. So I'm going to let an authority.
I love it. I think that people don't like my answer either. So they're like, whatever. I recommend the READY test, RHETI. It's a $12 test. That is the test I recommend to start. It is just a starting point, because the Enneagram, it is about uncovering and discovering about yourself. And so, in the marriage book, the editor asked me, like, why do you write uncover and discover? Aren't they the same thing? And I don't think that they are. I think you uncover past parts of your life story that you allow to come to the surface. You take a look at it, you look back, you maybe are making some sense of some stuff, and then you discover parts of yourself that you're going to move towards in growth. And you start to have a deeper understanding of who you are and why you do what you do, and those pieces together. So when you take a test, it's going to be like the first 3 numbers are my, I'm a 1, 6, 9. And I'm like, nope, that's not how it works. You're one number, dominant number. You have one dominant number, and it does not change throughout your life because it is attached to your childhood messages and patterns of behavior that get developed as early as the age of 2. So that's what we're looking at. So these numbers don't change, but we see them adapt, and we see health and growth. And we also see stress where some of your patterns of behavior not so beautiful, come out. So we see some of that, and then subtypes with an Enneagram. There's 3 different subtypes for every number. So there's like 27 types. And I know this is a lot, right? This is like drinking from a fire hose.
Well, and that's the thing. And I don't mean to, and I don't want to cut you off, but it is. And we've talked about this with other guests. Like I look at the Enneagram, it's like an onion. You just keep peeling back layers.
Perfect. Yeah. Or somebody else, another training I was doing, they said it's an artichoke. Like you peel the layers of an artichoke, because when you get to the center, you get to the heart.
Ooh, that is so good. Yeah. I like that. I will. So, I like it. But one of the things I think we need to caution with tests, and I'll let you kind of weigh in on that.
So with the test, so I think you take a test, you start to read about it, and you've got to look at the motivations. Why are you doing it? Not the behaviors that you're doing. I want to know why you're doing it. So that's the deep dive. That's like, okay, these are the three top numbers that I scored as, is what I usually see come up. And then I'm going to look at what is true, what is true, what is true. You're only going to be able to answer to your awareness. And so it just, sometimes, like I worked with one client, it took 2 years for her to figure out her Enneagram number. So sometimes it's like right off the bat, and other times it takes years to figure out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, again, for me, I joke and say, I'm an 8 with an 8 wing. Like I am very, what one would call a textbook 8 challenger. I read it. I could have just like stopped right there.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it is not as clear cut. And there are certain types on the Enneagram that have similar characteristics.
Yes. Yes.
And so, you'll 2s and 9s or 4s and 7s or whatever. And again, depending on what season of life you're in and kind of where you were. Because again, like you said, you were situationally forced, for lack of a better word, you were thrust into this, I need to take charge role because your husband's on the road and you've got 4 kids. So here it is, I got to steer the ship. So a lot of times we'll look at kind of where we are in our season of life and just make decisions based off of that. And I think that's where the internal work comes into play.
Yeah, it's like hold space for yourself. That's what I want to say. Hold space for yourself to be curious around the information you're reading, and it's okay for you to be like, oh, that is really resonating. Let me dig on that a little bit, or seek out some help from somebody that is a professional that can help you dig, knows the questions to ask, and can guide in those ways. And this is just, the more you can understand you, the more you can live whole in yourself. And that's the goal, is that you can understand yourself and love yourself and live in a way that is authentic to who you are. And sometimes we have to recognize like the statements of, well, that's just who I am. No, that's not who you are. Those are patterns of behavior that you've developed over time to protect yourself, to keep yourself safe, and to get your needs met. That's what that is. So I want to dig and find and see you. Does that make sense like that?
No, it makes total sense. I'm sitting here like, if anybody's watching on YouTube, I'm nodding and saying yes, because I totally agree. And one of the things that I love about the Enneagram is that there's a practical application.
Yes.
Because I'm somebody who's a doer. It's like, okay, so now what? Like, what do I do with it? And that's kind of where my work comes in, where the rubber meets the road, is saying, all right, my goal, Lori Palau, is I want to help people to reduce clutter, live simply, enjoy the people that they're with, the work that they're doing, whatever it is, fill in the blank. And having this clarity and language, which I think is just having language, has been such an incredible tool for my own life and just in my family, and then the people that I'm working with. So I'm going to throw it back to you as an Enneagram 7. Did we talk about what the characteristics of the Enneagram 7 are, what they might look like? Did we talk about that?
You highlighted a little bit in the intro, and I think you did a good job.
Oh, did I? Okay. Well, I'm like so far into this conversation, but for anybody, again, that's new, can you just, in your own words, either reiterate what I said or just kind of add to it of what who the 7 is?
So the 7 is the energetic enthusiast. They are positive thinkers. They are fierce. They go after what they want. They stand independently from other people. So don't move towards people. They don't move away from people. They're usually like, this is who I am, love it or leave it. Let's go out and have a good time. Which is the stereotype of a 7. When you really get into the work of a 7, you're going to see some other parts of a 7. But what people see on the outside is usually upbeat, positive, happy, visionary, maybe scattered, maybe cluttered, messy, in your mind and everywhere else when you're not in a healthy place or you don't understand growth. And so, yeah, but for the most part, it is positive, upbeat, happy, let's go do it, silver lining, we can figure this thing out.
Yeah, I like to also say, I look at the sevens, at least the ones in my world, as kind of your glass half full people, where, you know, we may have been dealt a bad hand in this, whatever it is, but we're going to figure it out. And here's the silver lining. And they're the make lemonade people.
100%.
Yeah. Which I think to some people, especially, and I'm stereotyping, maybe like a 4 who likes to sit in the melancholy a little bit, that could be annoying because sometimes we don't want to see the glass, you know, there are people that don't want to see it, but I think it's great. And we need those sevens in our lives for sure. Now, I want to talk a little bit about clutter and organization and what that looks like in your world, kind of how you define that, where that fits in to kind of the spectrum of who you are as a person, and then situationally, you know, as a mom.
It's a great question. I was thinking about this question a little bit because it's changed over time, just like seasons of life change. And so when I was, you know, in the thick of it with all my kids when they were little, I think everything was cluttery. My heart was cluttery. My head was cluttery. My life was cluttery. And I was just trying to keep my head above water and, you know, doing the best I can with a happy, cheerful disposition. Yeah. And I'm going to make cupcakes and who cares if there's stuff all over the counters and like that kind of, and, you know, my husband, I think he was gracious. So we'll just say he was gracious in it. But as I've understood more about myself, I understand that the cluttery parts of me is not the healthiest part of me, that is scattered. It's not intentional. It's like, doing all the things, let's get all the things done, kind of like gather. And that would be part of my protective layer of like, I don't know if I'm going to get this again, or I don't know if I'm going to get the chance to do this again, or whatever has happened inside of my head from little on up. So as an adult, where I sit in the seat today, I understand the importance of rhythms, margin. We just moved into a new house a year and a half ago. And when we did, I said, if it doesn't have a home, it doesn't go. And so our house is not cluttery at all, because there's, I've done some growth work in this area to understand that I have peace in my heart and my head, in my home, when you go into the gluttony side of myself and gather things I don't need. And so, or what I think is going to bring me happiness or whatever is happening in that moment. So a couple of things that helped me with this shift was years ago, I read Lisa TerKeurst. Do you know that name, Lisa TerKeurst?
Of course.
So she wrote the book, The Best Yes. It changed everything about my life. Like that book, it said that you have the same amount of hours in the day that everybody else says, what are you doing with them? And my husband's in the music industry now, but he was in ministry for a really long time. And so I couldn't figure out how to say no to things. And I didn't want to, there's just so many things, like as a pastor's wife, you just have to say yes to things you don't want to do. And our family situation was heavy. There's just lots to our story. And so reading that book, it gave me the opportunity to say no to good things so that I could say yes to great things. And I learned,
which is hard for anybody, but especially a 7, because I feel like, again, I'm making very broad stroke generalizations here, people. So please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I feel like an overarching theme for 7s could be about a bit of FOMO.
Oh yeah.
And so to be able to have the intentionality to stop and or to hit pause and say, no, not now, even if it means that it's going to bring something greater, is still potentially counterintuitive to kind of what your knee-jerk reaction would be like, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, I think it was that. And could I quote a scripture? Is that okay if I quote a scripture?
Of course, absolutely.
I just want to be mindful of my, audience, like whatever.
No, absolutely.
So Proverbs 8:12 at the same time, this scripture just hit me at the same time that I was reading this past. Yes. And it says, I am Lady Wisdom. I live next to sanity, and knowledge and discretion live just down the street. And I was like, in that season, I was like, Lord, I feel insane. I feel like I am a crazy person. And there's a lot of a lot of tears, private tears as a 7, a lot of loneliness and scared, and a lot of feelings happening in that season of my life. And so when I read that, I was like, I'm praying for sanity. This scripture tells me how to get it. It's wisdom, knowledge, and discretion. It's knowing what I can handle, because I understand how things are going to go. Some of it's the knowledge of doing things and them not going well. So don't want to do that again. And then the discernment or the discretion is saying no, like being able to just say no. Those pieces for me as a 7, that book, that scripture, and then me walking into it, the doing part of it, because I'm with you, there has to be action behind this. And, information is not transformation until we activate the information. Otherwise, it's just information. We're just balls of information, but, like, I should say that differently, like heads of information.
Yes. No, but I know what you, absolutely. And I think, again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Again, we're looking at, and this is where the Enneagram picks it up, but whether you use Enneagram language or not, in order to be balanced or whole, we need to rely on emotion, our heart. We need to rely on analytics and knowledge, facts, which is our head, and we need to rely on action. One of those, or even 2 of those, do not necessarily make the progress that we're looking to have. Right. And so the work that I do with trying to connect the dots between the Enneagram and the work that we do with clutter, and after the break we'll kind of get a little bit more into the clutter and organization piece as well, is just being able to be aware of how can we use each of those centers. How can we use the head center? How can we use the heart center? How can we use our doing center? Because all 3 of them have to work in tandem for us to actually see progress.
Yes. Yep.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation and talk about the 3 different types of clutter. So sit tight. All right, so we started kind of digging into this, but I want to go a little bit further about, and I almost want to go back a little bit about even who you were before you had kids, because I think a lot of times when I ask this question, especially if they're moms and moms of multiple kids, the immediate answer is physical clutter. So I want to kind of look back at the different types of clutter that I speak to.
Yeah,
all right.
Good. Mm-hmm.
All right. So in terms of the 3 types of clutter, Jackie, we highlight, then there's many like kind of subsets of them, but I talk about physical clutter, the stuff that you see, emotional clutter, which is that guilt, that fear, that scarcity mindset, or calendar clutter, which is what we talk about so much about margin, being overscheduled. And I think when most people can say, I can relate to more than one, but I've found that like most things, there seems to be a dominant theme for most people of which type resonates with them. And I'm curious for you, even going back prior to having kids, has there been a theme in your world of one of those being dominant? And if so, how has that shown up?
I love this question.
Oh, good.
It's making me think. Because you're right, like clutter with kids. Yeah. Have I always been a little bit messy? Maybe. Calendar clutter. I don't really have a hard time saying no to things. It's more position, whatever. But that emotional clutter, I did not know that I carried. I knew it, but I didn't know the effect it had on me until 30s and 40s. And when I started to do a lot of work with a therapist, I did some intensive in my own life. And I recognized how much I was downplaying some of the really hard emotional things I had gone through in my life. My dad left when I was little. I was 2 and he left, and it was a single mom with 2 little girls. And when I look back, even in that part of my story, and I'll say that doing the work with the people I get to do the work with, it it makes you have time to think and process in your own stuff. I don't bring it into their sessions, but as I'm walking on the beach or I'm doing whatever I'm doing, I'm kind of processing my own stuff. And I've recognized I was scared. I have been scared all of my little tiny life. Then into my teen years, I didn't look scared. I looked confident. I was like senior class president, homecoming queen, all the things that on the outside appeared to be this one thing. But then when it came down to senior trip, I didn't go because I was scared that I wouldn't measure up, or I wouldn't say the right things, or people would think I didn't look good in a bathing suit, which I wish I could have the 18-year-old body back. Like,
amen to that. You're preaching to the choir. I'm just like, gosh.
Right? Like, but when I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was scared. So the emotional side of what I needed was underdeveloped. And as an Enneagram 7, we struggle with needing more nurture than we got from the nurturing parent. My mom was lovely. She's an Enneagram 2. She's loving and caring and kind. But in that season, those early stages of my life, she was going through a traumatic event with her husband leaving and all those things. And I stepped in as her nurturer, but I needed to be nurtured. And so I ended up in this, I think this role through my life with in some degree on codependency. Like, I'll be the nurturer. I'll take care of you. I'll make you happy, which is a lot of the 7. I'll make you happy. I'll keep this upbeat. I'll do this. we're going to keep everybody okay. And we're not okay ourselves. And so I think it's the emotional clutter, if I am being brutally honest to an audience.
I appreciate that authenticity and vulnerability, because that does not come easy to our 7s, our 8s. Like, there are certain types of the Enneagram. Like, I'm super transparent, but there's a difference between transparency and vulnerability.
Yes.
So I completely, I appreciate it. And I know that there are people listening out there that are going, oh my gosh, like, that's me, or I can completely relate to that. So now fast forward, and now here you are living your life, great career, great family, like all things looking on the surface like wonderful. I'm sure that like anything, they're not, and not all as they seem. How does that emotional clutter kind of show up, or how is that translated into your relationship with organization stuff clutter now in your 40s?
Yeah, that's another great question. That the emotional side of stuff, I'm able to catch things because I've studied myself through the lens of the Enneagram. I'm able to catch myself when I start to go into like hypercritical or judgmental or irritable. Irritable is a really good one for me. When I am like snappy, I typically know like I am not doing the things that I need to do to take care of me emotionally. And so maybe I'm giving to everybody else, but I have not worked out in a week. And so I'm kind of mad that I'm neglecting myself, but I don't want to say that to you. So then I'm just mean to you. I don't even know what, and I can catch it. And I'm like, oh, this feels messy. And it's not you. I think it's me. I think I'm not doing self-care. And because of that, it comes out irritable. Like it does. It's like this. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think it all relates, I guess, to kind of maybe just prod a little bit further. And I mean, it is super helpful, but in terms of, do you tend to say, forget it, I'm shutting the door, I'm not doing the laundry, screw it? Or, and I'm overgeneralizing here again, broad strokes. Or are you like, now I'm going to micromanage a situation? Or I'm like, how does when you find yourself in these tense situations, and I'll use myself as an example, just to kind of give you a minute to think and maybe give some additional clarity. So I'm an 8, and in stress, I go to Enneagram 5. And I can see myself, and I've just been like on this, so far this summer, it's been great, but it's been really busy. We started off with a vacation, I came back, and work is really super crazy. And I'm trying to write this Enneagram and Clutter book, and I'm just feeling overwhelmed. And most of it's all good stuff, but I'm just feeling overwhelmed. And the other night I just hit like a wall and I was like, I need to put myself in a timeout. I just want to retreat because I'm usually that in your face, go 8 person. But I was like, nope, I am retreating. I'm withdrawing into my 5-ness and I'm just shutting the door. I'm going in my room and I'm shutting the door because I just need a break from everything. I need to hit the pause button for myself. And so my normal reaction or my normal behavior, which would be Lori's going to take charge and we're going to do this. We're going to have everything checked off and blah, 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 showed up completely different. And it was, nope, that can just wait till tomorrow, or that can wait till another time. And I noticed that now that I'm becoming more, you know, over the years, as I've studied the Enneagram, I'm starting to see how it's like my body's protecting itself really, or I'm protecting myself for myself. And so I'm just curious for you. I don't know if that helps explain at all or give some additional context.
Yeah, it's still the same kind of thing. So as a 7, I go to a 1, I get nitpicky and critical and I get bossy. So that's what happens. If I'm really stressed, if I really have been not paying attention, or I feel overwhelmed, or we're down to crunch time. And because my typical self is like, throw caution to the wind, we'll deal with it later. You know, 15 loads of laundry later, I'm like, what, where is the maid? Oh, we don't have one. You know, that is what it's like. Yes. Like, oh, I'm supposed to be the one cleaning the kitchen. Oh, I forgot. And so that, like, the throw caution to the wind changes. I'll tell you though, it doesn't take long for me to get to a 1 when it comes to the clutter. I can't stand it, I can't stay in it for very long. And so I know I can't, it messes with everything. Like, it makes my husband irritable, it makes the kids irritable, it makes me irritable. So it doesn't take long for me to get to that place of like, okay, before anybody does anything else, this is what has to happen. Yeah. You take your stuff upstairs, you deal with your stuff. My kids are all bigger. So part of that clutter, you know, if you look at my desk, my husband does not want any part of that. He's like, that is ridiculous.
Well, he's a 3. So I would suspect that he's like allergic to clutter.
Does it stress him out? Clutter. Oh, it's awful. Everything is perfect. And I just keep buying baskets, and so I've got baskets all around my desk with my books in it. Cause I use so much stuff. I do Zoom calls like this, 3 days a week, full time. It's not full time, I guess, if it's 3 days a week, but all day, 3 days a week. Yes. And so I'm like pulling things out, and I just use different tools to help people unpack their story. So my desk is cluttery mess. I need you. And my closet, that is another one that can get crazy, but I know it's mine. So it's nobody else's. So when it's other people's stuff, then I'm like, no. When it's mine, I'm like, oh, I'll get to it. And then finally I put a show on my computer in my closet, and I go and hang all my stuff up. So I'm still not, you know, I'm like,
yeah, but that's fine. Please. I always tell people that that's why I love podcasts so much, because I will put on a podcast and wash dishes or put on a podcast and do whatever. And it's great because I don't have to stop and watch or read. You know, I'm not a huge audiobook person. I wish I were, which I'm a podcast person. I don't know why I'm not an audiobook, but I think I have no problem with that at all. I have another question for you. So I talk about, in my teaching, I talk about like these 5 main clutter pitfalls that anybody can fall into. And I think, again, where the Enneagram comes in is that we all exhibit them for different reasons, or why we procrastinate is different for each of us. So just to quickly top line run through them just for you. So there are procrastination, which is I'll get to it later. Indecision, which is I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to like put it over here. Then we have guilt, which is it either cost a lot of money or somebody gave it to me. That's sentimental. Overwhelm, which is I'm ready to do it, but I don't even know where to start. And then of course, time, which is I know what to do, all this, but I have no margin in my life. So so those 5 clutter pitfalls, I think, again, it's fluid. It's not linear. We're all going through different ones, but I'm curious because a lot of the 7s that are in my life, because they are go, 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 and they're those adventure seekers, the time factor is a big one for them because they are so busy doing things that they leave, to your maid comment.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so I left the beds unmade, or I left the laundry that needs to get done. And then we went out and did X, Y, and Z, and we came home and it's still right where I left it because, oh, right, that's on me.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say time. I think the one procrastination, I'm just thinking like my closet, that's procrastination. That's like, I'll get to it later. My desk, I'll get to it later. So time, some, guilt, none at all. I don't even, I feel none of those feelings.
Me neither.
Indecision. I don't feel that either. So mine actually might be procrastination and overwhelmed, I think, because time for me, reading that book, using that scripture, and then what I do, I'm very time blocked. So I get off work 3:30, 4 o'clock, try to, on the days that I work, because my kids come home from school, then it's about them and So it sounds a little codependent still. Like I'm trying to make sure that.
No, okay. It's not. But you're not. It's not. It's, I want, this is great. Go, keep going. Yeah.
So I think like, time could play a part in it right then, because I only have so many years left with them. And so that weighs heavy on me. Like I really love to be with my kiddos. And so I think about that. Procrastination, overwhelmed can be definitely the case, but I don't feel like in this season of my life that I feel the overwhelmed is there because there's no clutter, because the way that we designed this house and what we brought into it, there's just no clutter. So that overwhelmed piece that would have been the case with toys and playrooms and things like that, doesn't exist as much. But I would, if you could look at it and say, no, it still does, Jackie. And I would listen to you, because maybe it does. Maybe I'm like, I don't know. I didn't.
Well, I'm not putting you under a microscope. And I think it's, again, there's no right or wrong answer. Yeah. It's just, for me, it's information gathering and data, because I look at, and I do see procrastination being a big one for a lot of people. And I think, again, we can procrastinate for different reasons, where it's just not important, or there's something better I would be doing, or I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to take action on it, which is a little indecision. But, if I can't do it at once, like for example, our ones, a lot of times, especially when it comes to we'll like use the closet analogy. And we talked about this on the conversation with our Enneagram ones is, if you can't necessarily block an entire afternoon to do your closet, I'm not going to do it at all. Like that little at a time doesn't apply to ones, because they want to check it off that to-do list. Yeah. And so I will see procrastination because they'll procrastinate until they have that larger chunk to say, I'm going to be able to do it all at once. So I think
that could definitely, yes. So that definition is my closet, like that. And it's just me. It's my own closet. So it's my own stuff. So I'm like, this is the only place that I can be messy. And is it rebellion? I don't even know what it is, you guys, but it is this feeling of like, if I can't do it all, then I'll just do it later. And then it just keeps piling on till I'm like, I cannot find my clothes.
Well, it could be that. It could also be, and again, I'm just spitballing in our 45-minute conversation, but it could also be there are other things that are taking priority right now. And as much as I would like this isn't negatively impacting me at this point. I tell people when it comes to clutter, usually it's until it becomes a pain point for you, until it's really affecting. And maybe it is and you're not aware of it. Maybe you're snapping every morning at your kids. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying, someone out there, one of our listeners. And maybe it's because you just spent 15 minutes trying to find something that you couldn't find. So maybe it is causing a pain point that you don't realize. But most people, even if it's messy or disorganized, until it's causing a rift in your life and it's impacting you negatively, you have less of a motivation to want to take action on it, because there's so many other things in our lives that are pulling at us, that are our demands. And so again, that's one of the things when people say to me, how do I motivate somebody else to do something? And I'm like, okay, well, you want the honest answer? You don't. Like, you can't, that has to come from, you can explain, you can try to give language and perspective, but you can't force motivation. You can't coach somebody that doesn't want to be coached,
Right.
And so I think, again, it's that self-awareness of knowing. So maybe it's not a problem for you.
Well, it isn't until it is. And then I take then I'm like, okay, I need to do this. I wish that, why don't I just put it in the dirty clothes or hang it up? Like, why don't I do that? That is the piece of like, a one would do that, or my 3 husband does that. I don't know. I guess it doesn't bother me until it bothers me. Right. Is what I hear you saying.
Or maybe you don't have the strategies that really resonate for you, because I think there's a lot of times that we all know things, right? We all know, we know that we shouldn't eat sugar. We know that we shouldn't eat a ton of carbs, but a lot of times, but I ate French fries last night. So, just because we know things doesn't mean that we're always going to do it. Or working out, you need to find something that's going to resonate with you. So maybe the strategy that works for your husband as a 3 is not the right strategy that works for you. And that in and of itself, to kind of bring it full circle, is all the work that I'm doing, is saying the same strategies don't necessarily apply, even if we're looking for the same result, even if we're looking to not have cluttered counters or whatever it is. The way that we approach it might look different based on what is going to be important to us. So maybe it's just finding that right strategy for you.
Yeah, I think that definitely could be it. Like, that is, I'm just thinking through, like, this move to this new house made all the difference. Before we ever moved in, we had a plan, and we bought all the bins, we bought everything to put everything where it needed to go, if that made sense. So everything has a home. And so, except for my closet, apparently, but everything else seems to have a
Jackie,
home.
we are going to address this closet. We are doing this closet. You and I we are doing this closet.
Because, that would be the pain point. I'm like, that everything else makes sense and has a home and there's a rhythm to it. But then this one area that gets to be mine is like the 7. It's the 7 to me. Throw caution to the wind.
So again, why are we neglecting our own needs, Jackie, in our closet?
Oh my goodness, you did it. Look at
and we can stop
good. There. That's it. That's the end.
And we'll be back next week. No, just kidding, people.
Oh my gosh. That is so good. You just did it. Could make me cry.
Yes. Well,
that was beautiful.
I don't want to make you cry, but I think for a lot of people, that comes true. And I think a lot of times our 2s can resonate with that, right? It seems very natural. Your 2s or your helpers are going to put but it just goes to show that no Enneagram type is immune to different things. Right. And that is what the work that I'm doing is not to say, oh, if you're a 8, that means that you don't struggle with this, or you're a 7, that means you do struggle with that. Any Enneagram type can struggle with any of the clutter pitfalls, any of the dominant types of clutter, but it's what is the strategy? What can we apply that is going to resonate with you? That's going to give you that light moment based on who you are. And the lens that you see the world.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. That changes the game. That's it. Good. That was amazing. Oh, this was, thank you. Thank you.
And you're welcome. And you're welcome. Well, since I was able to inadvertently help you, which I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I was able to do. Before we go to our last break, I would love for you, and again, you've dropped tons of wisdom, but just any words of wisdom for people who, especially if they're newer to the Enneagram, and they're just either learning about their type, or maybe they're getting their family or kids or whatnot. What can you say to somebody who's identifying as a 7 or lives with a 7 to just have some more grace and understanding?
Yeah, it goes to those longing messages. So wanting to be taken care of. A 7 wants to be taken care of, and it's usually on an emotional level. Physical, financially is nice too, but on an emotional level, they want to be taken care of. A 7 often feels like they have to fight for a seat at the table, even when they are invited to the table. And so understanding that they want to be taken serious, but oftentimes they're the ones that people laugh at, or they become the jokester. I don't know. There's some pieces to this, but they really want to be taken seriously. They want their voice to matter. They want people to know that there's something within them that they want to be valued. And so there's a lot of those pieces, I think, within Enneagram 7, if you are living with an Enneagram 7, to listen and nurture and laugh at their jokes and laugh at them being silly, but then also take time to listen and lean in and what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What do you need? What do they need? And if you are the 7, allowing yourself to ask yourself, like, what do I need? Just like the closet situation. Like, I'm not taking care of the closet because it seems selfish. Why? It needs to be, it's not selfish, but sometimes that's what happens. Like making sure everybody else is okay and everybody else is happy and everybody else is fed and everybody. What if you took a look at yourself and said, what do I need? What do I need? And how do I move towards that?
I love it. Well, there is always a seat at the table for you. With our community here at This Organized Life. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing, for coming on our show, for taking time from your vacation to chat with us. Really, it means the world to me, and I know to our listeners. So before we take our last break, just tell everyone again, we'll link up to everything. Where can they find you? What's the best place to connect up with you for all the things, book, podcast?
Okay. So on Instagram, it's Enneagram with JB. On my website, it's enneagramjb.com, and all my information is there. So either one you can, and I DM me, talk back to me. I love all that stuff. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, we're going to take one more quick break, come back and just do our final wrap-up questions. So sit tight. All right, Jackie, this has been a super fun conversation and very informative for our listeners and clearly for you.
Yes, it was great. I mean, I'm still thinking and processing, like, that was life altering. Yes.
Well, I love it. And I'm so grateful. So thank you so much for, giving us that space. I know you mentioned a couple of books earlier in the conversation, so they may hold true, but we always wrap up our conversation by asking our guests what book has been something that's been really transformational in your life, or something either it could be something that you go back to or something that you refer other people to. And again, I know you've dropped a few, so you can either rename one of those or pick something else.
Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about Enneagram books, The Wisdom of the Enneagram by Don Rizzo and Russ Hudson, I love.
It was the first Enneagram book I ever read, by the way.
It's just so good.
Yeah.
And then they have, anything that they've written, I gather their books. I like books by Beatrice Chestnut as well. I mean, there's several, right? But I like her work around subtypes. So if you're just looking for a deeper dive. Also, if you're a business person and you want to understand leadership, Beatrice Chestnut has an excellent leadership book out that I highly recommend.
Well, I've never read that one. I'll have to check that one out.
It's so good. You actually would love it. I think it would help with what you do. You would love it. So those, I love that. I read books on attachment theory and emotional intelligence. Brene Brown's books are my favorite. Mm-hmm. And then I read for fun too. So although I never remember the authors' names for the fun books, like they're just beach reads. And so I just grab whatever's like bestseller. And so I really enjoy those.
If it's a fun cover, it's like how I buy wine. Oh, I like that. Oh, what kind of wine? I don't know. I like the label. I don't.
Yeah. Yes. That is how I buy everything, right? No, not really, but yeah.
It's all about the branding. And then our last two questions that we ask every guest in every series, which is, where in this season of your life do you feel the most organized, and where do you feel like a bit of a hot mess?
Oh, most organized. I feel like, I feel like I have a good rhythm. So I feel organized in my calendar. I feel organized in my calendar. I think on the emotional organization, like that emotional part, I think that's a forever journey in that's the work that I do. So I feel super sensitive to that. I think I always want to stay aware of that. So yeah, I think that's probably where I would fall on that.
Yeah.
Did I answer that question? I got super distracted in my own head.
Yeah, no, you're totally, no, there's no right or wrong. It's just kind of where we are. And the whole purpose of me asking these questions is, living an organized life is holistic, and it's not all about being one dimensional in a Pinterest picture or Instagram post. And even the most organized people or people that are thriving in their business or their personal life, like we all have areas that were continually a work in progress. Yeah. And so I like to just put that out there to remind our listeners, because a lot of times we can all get in our own heads thinking that we're the only one that doesn't have it together or whatever it is. And no,
I do have help on the business side. So I have a project manager and I have an assistant. If I didn't have them, I think I would be in trouble. So I think because I have some help there, it gives me a little bit more space to be able to gather information and continue to produce content and write books and things like that. Yeah. So I'm super appreciative of the help that I have, because I don't think I could do it without that.
Well, I think, and that goes true for whether you're a stay-at-home parent or whatever season of life you're in. We all need to delegate. We all need support. We can't do it all on our own. Whether we're running our families, running a business, be in the world of entrepreneurship, you can't wear all the hats all of the time. It's just not sustainable. So, we can do it for a short stint, seasons, but, and I think that's also our message. So I appreciate you saying that. Well, Jackie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on our show and for sharing your story and information with our listeners. If you're new to our show, welcome to this Organized Life podcast. We're on YouTube, Instagram, all podcasting channels, wherever you want to find us, you can find us. And I hope you're enjoying this series. Please drop us a note. Let us know what you think. We've had some great guests on. We have 2 more to go in the series, our Enneagram 8s and Enneagram 9s. And we're bringing it in-house with my people who are Enneagram 8s and 9s. So I hope you tune in for next week's episode. And until then, I'm Lori Palau. Peace out.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please spread the love and share it with your friends. And if this is your first time joining us, make sure to click the subscribe button wherever you are listening so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, please leave us a review so other people know that our show is worth the listen. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram at This Organized Life Podcast. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can head on over to our website at simply the letter B like boy organized.com, which is filled with tons of resources, including free downloads, checklists, links to our amazing organizing partners, and all of our digital offerings. I'll see you next week for another episode of This Organized Life.